With some help, the brain can repair itself. That's what neurosurgeon Jocelyn Block and her colleagues do. What's more, we adults can grow new neurons. This phenomenon is called neurogenesis. In this video, you'll learn how the brain can repair itself and get specific tips on how to help the brain activate neurogenesis while improving mood, enhancing memory, and preventing aging. 20 years ago, Jocelyn Block was a resident physician in a trauma emergency room. She often saw patients with head injuries. Sometimes part of the swollen brain had to be removed to save their lives. Jocelyn Block and her fellow biologist Jean-François Section Oers Brunet decided to study them. They wanted to grow cells from these pieces of the brain, and they succeeded. This is what they saw under the microscope. It was an amazing sight because it looks just like stem cells, large green cells surrounding small and immature stem cells. These immature cells are capable of turning into cells of various organs and tissues. They are present in the adult brain, but they are extremely few. Moreover, they are located in small niches deep in the brain. Therefore, it was surprising to find them in the material from the surface of the brain cut out during the surgery. But these cells were still different from stem cells. The fact is that stem cells divide quickly and never die. These, on the other hand, were dividing slowly, and after a few weeks of cultivation, they die altogether. This new kind of cell looks like a stem cell but behaves differently. So where did they come from? Jocelyn Block and her colleagues spent a lot of time trying to find out. They finally figured out that they came from these 7 red cells called double cortin positive cells. These cells make up 4% of the cells in the cerebral cortex, and we all have them. When we were in the womb, they helped our brains form. Scientists speculate that these cells may be involved in brain repair because they're found in high concentrations near brain damage. This is a possible new source of cells capable of repairing the brain. Jocelyn Block and her colleagues conducted experiments on monkeys. They wanted to find out whether these cells help animals recover from brain damage. First, the monkeys were taught to take a manual dexterity test. They had to pick up pieces of food from hollows. When they learned how, the scientists damaged the parts of their cerebral cortex responsible for their hand movements. As a result, the monkeys could no longer move their hands as humans do after a stroke. After some time, they recovered to a certain level on their own. This is due to the flexibility of the brain. Then scientists implanted those same cells into the monkey's brain. This is what came out of it. On the left, you see a monkey that recovered on its own. It's doing 40–50% of its previous performance before the injury, not the same speed or accuracy anymore. And on the right, you see the same monkey, but after implanted cells 2 months later. This is a staggering result. Scientists have since learned that these cells can be cryopreserved for use later. They can be used in neuropathology, such as in the treatment of Parkinson's disease, but they have not yet been implanted into humans. However, scientists are optimistic. Now let's turn to another speaker, neuroscientist Sandra Inter. According to her, new nerve cells are emerging in adults, although not long ago it was thought otherwise. This process is called neurogenesis. Jonas Brysom, a professor at the Caroline Institute in Sweden, has calculated that every day 700 new neurons are produced in the hippocampus. At first sight, this is nothing compared to the billions of neurons we already have, but by the age of 50, all the neurons we have from birth are replaced by neurons that have already been formed in the adult brain. So why are the new neurons important and what do they do? It is known that they are necessary for learning, as well as for the volume and quality of memory. But there's also an interesting relationship between neurogenesis and depression. When we take antidepressants, we increase the production of new neurons, so we reduce the symptoms of depression. And if we block neurogenesis, the effectiveness of antidepressants will drop. These studies have explained why some patients who get rid of cancer continue to suffer from depression. The fact is that cancer drugs prevent new neurons from forming, and it takes time for new nerve cells to form. Can we control neurogenesis ourselves? The good news: yes, we can. For example, learning and sex increase the production of new neurons, while stress and lack of sleep reduce neurogenesis. As for physical activity, let's take a look at the results of an interesting study by Rusty Gage of the Salk Institute. On the left, you see a section of the hippocampus of a mouse that didn't have a wheel in its gauge. The little black dots are the future newborn neurons. On the right, you see the hippocampus section of a mouse that had a wheel in its cell. The number of black dots has greatly increased. And, of course, what we eat affects neurogenesis. Key points: neurogenesis increases when, first, caloric restriction by 20–30%. Second, short-term fasting increases the time between meals. 3. Consumption of flavonoids, which are found in bitter chocolate, blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries. Blueberries have very serious antioxidant properties, and if you consume just 2 servings a week, it helps improve memory and also prevent memory deterioration as you age. Dark berries and such as blackberries, cherries and blueberries are very good sources of flavonoids that improve our brain health. Although, on the other hand, in our latitudes, berries are probably a seasonal phenomenon. But there is good news. The fact is that dried and frozen berries do not lose all their useful properties, so you can use them at any time. Fourth, the consumption of omega-3 fatty acids, which are contained in oily fish, such as salmon and trout. But fish is also a matter of taste. Nutritionists are very fond of oily fish from the salmon family because they have a lot of those healthy omega-3s. The fact is that the more omega-3 fatty acids a person eats, the less beta-amyloid will be in his blood, and it is beta-amyloid that triggers the onset of Alzheimer's disease. This is a serious disease, which is called senile dementia. 5. Nuts. Almost any nut is very good for our brain because of the fatty acids it contains, primarily omega-3. Nuts and seeds are high in thiamine and magnesium. They have been proven to improve our brain's cognitive functions. Walnuts, for example, are a very good source of zinc, potassium, magnesium and iron, and phosphorus. Brazil nuts are very rich in selenium, an extremely important element for our brain. 6. Broccoli. In fact, any type of cabbage will be very beneficial to our health, but broccoli has always stood out among cabbage for a reason. This vegetable is very high in vitamin K, which is very good for our brain function, so it is necessary to include it in your diet at least once in a while. Studies have shown that if we eat dark green vegetables, we will keep our brains young until old age, and in addition to vitamin K, they also contain vitamin A and fiber. 7. Moderate consumption of resveratrol contained in red wine. It is worth remembering that in general alcohol weakens the process of neurogenesis. Also, a diet rich in saturated fats has a negative effect, which means that for the health of the brain, one should not overindulge in fast food and confectionery products. Another unusual thing about food: neuronal production is affected by the texture of the food. Soft foods weaken the process of neurogenesis, while crunchy foods that require chewing are the opposite. Bottom line, not only what you eat matters, but also the texture of the food you eat, when you eat it, and how much you eat. Your brain will also benefit from learning, sex, healthy sleep, and physical activity. Don't forget that, and take care of your brain, and your brain will take care of you. Friends, please write in the comments if you are interested in this topic. It's important for me to know your opinion. I also recommend watching my other video about foods that help us to fight blood clots. Thank you for your likes, comments, and subscriptions. You will find a lot more useful information below the video. All the best to you.